There was a dealer in Leeds who was Aston Martin. It was Arnold G. Wilson's. But things had been a bit tough in the expensive car market. So I got onto Aston for the motor show. And they said, yeah, you could have Leeds, we'd be delighted if you'd have Leeds. I said, well, order a demonstrator. I want to order 2 or 3 for stock. I said, 2 or 3 for stock? We don't do that. He said, it's Aston Martin you talk about now, not Ford. Yeah, if you have one order, so as much as you need. I never thought of taking Ferrari. But one afternoon I was in the showroom and a guy pulled up and he introduced himself from Maranello concessionaires for Ferrari. He said, well look, I'll tell you what, I'm up here to see Appleyards, and I've seen Appleyards. And they can't take the franchise because Jaguar won't let them. So I had to come away and go back to London. I thought, before I do that, I've heard about your company and your success with Porsche and other things. We'll come and talk to you. So I said, right, well, let's talk. And he went away absolutely delighted.
So at the time I joined, Jack had, I can't remember the exact number, probably around 8 dealerships, maybe 9. And they all ran independently, and Jack, through Jim O'Leary, who was the MD at the time, independently, not really as a group. They would go around and manage these dealerships as they were, get the best out of them. There wasn't a lot of group philosophy, doing things the same way, whatever. And Jack was more interested in what the results were than what the systems were. The reason that I was recruited was that Jack had been persuaded to look into floating the company on the stock exchange, and they needed more financial muscle to do so. Flotations were very popular in the mid-80s. Stock market was booming. Companies such as DC Cooks, Reg Vardy, they'd all floated. And so that was a plan that Jack wanted to explore. As we got into the process and had lots of meetings and discussions and found things out from advisors, the downsides of a PLC soon became apparent, particularly to Jack. Not only did they start telling him, this is how much money you will make, and you need it to be an upward graph such as this, irrespective of economic conditions. And then they started telling him that this is the salary you'll be expected to take. And worst of all, for such a car fanatic as Jack, this is the car that you'll drive. So eventually Jack had enough and said, thanks but no thanks. And that was the end of the flotation idea. Another rarely known fact is that John's first boss at JCT 600 was myself. Shortly after I joined, Jack said, I think it'd be a good idea if my young son John, he's an accountant, he came to join you at head office. He said, don't worry, he's not coming to take your job. I don't think Jack realised at the time that he was actually coming to take his job.
Brian suggested that I go away and be a dealership accountant. And I did that for about 3 or 4 years, I guess. So I worked, at the time Harry Taylor was the general manager of the Porsche and Ferrari businesses at the time, and I was Harry's accountant. So I'd gone from having Brian as my boss to Harry as my boss. And when you've had Brian as your boss and Harry as your boss, you've had all the bosses that you ever need.
Harry took the role as the enforcer, a role that's perfectly suited to. And I was usually the shoulder to cry on from the general managers. So it was a good cop, bad cop relationship, but it worked very well. And when Harry went into a dealership, people stood up straight.
Brian was the joker in the pack. He was the one that made us laugh. No, to be quite honest, I think Jack, Brian and myself was quite a formidable trio. But it was a lot easier to be a dynamic trio in those days than what it probably is today, because in those days we had a lot of freedom with manufacturers. We could do our own thing to a degree, and we had lots of ideas that we tried. And fortunately, most of them worked.
As a typical Yorkshireman, Jack was very cautious spending his money. But it wasn't that he was just a tight individual. It was about getting value for money in anything that we spent. And there are a couple of examples I can say about when Jack was really happy to spend big. I think it was in the early 90s that we opened up the Brooklands showroom, which at the time was the biggest luxury sports car showroom in the whole of Europe. And another big decision of Jack that probably was his most shrewdest decision was he happily spent a few £1 million on the new head office, and what a great decision that has proved to be.
As we were growing, having more directors, and directors had meetings, we used to have the meetings on Sticker Lane, and it was getting a bit crowded. So a directors meeting we had down there, I don't go to many, but I went to this one, and we were on about we needed more space. Any ideas? And I'd had my eye on this place for quite a while, thinking he's going to sell that sometime, because he can't be making any money out of it. So I went to see him, and it wasn't like this then. It was, we did spend a bit on it. He said, funny well, I've actually got planning application in to turn it into apartments. He said, but it hasn't gone through yet. I said, well, we'd like to buy it off you, turn it into offices. So I said, well, yeah, how much you want to give for it? I said, well, I'll have to have it valued and find out. So now it came into Mark's quarter, and we'll get some ideas from our valuation people, and we'll have another talk and try to agree a suitable price between us and you. If we can do that, we can take it off immediately and pay you, and we can get our plans into alter it into offices. So he said, yeah, that's great as that. So that went ahead.